we get too far into this, our 25th governor came in just a moment ago, and I'd like to recognize Governor Keating. Where is the governor? There he is. I would also like to find Jillian. Where is the young lady who sang for us over? Now, I was standing right here, and that was absolutely phenomenal. And I can't imagine doing what she just did. And I love seeing the level of talent that comes out of our state. If you haven't been to OBU in a while, there in Shawnee, I was on their campus recently, and it's a beautiful campus. Great things that are happening there. I was at East Central University recently and was just amazed by what was happening there. And I keep visiting places around the state and am encouraged and surprised by just the great things that are happening. And so when you see all these students who are here from different places, I hope that you feel a sense of encouragement about that. I want to talk about the idea of impact today. And I'm excited about the topic, and I am hopeful that what we're going to be going through is helpful because it's meaningful to me, just like this program is meaningful to me. When I think about awards and places that give out awards, if you're not careful, they can become great PR moments, but they lose their depth over time. And it can often become one of those things of how good is your PR, not how good are you. And each of the names that were listed a moment ago and the awards that were given, those are people who authentically are pursuing great things. Jim Priest is a man that I just love dearly. And I love people who they talk about what they're going to be able to do, but they are living it out and asking you to be a part of it with them. And I love being around friends who are courageous and want to make a difference. I want to introduce to you 3 people. And I'm going to have these on the screen, and I want to tell you their story. Because when we talk about how character is formed, David Brooks really got at this idea that if you want to shape people's character, you have to know who they value as heroic people. So our character is shaped by the heroes that we choose. So if I'm looking at a community, if I know what they consider heroic, it will tell me a great deal about their character. If I look in a company and I look at what that company values most, what they consider to be heroic, it will tell me much about who they are hoping to be. When we talk about heroes, these are the people that we look at their lives and think to ourselves, it would be great if my life turned out a little bit more like that. And I want to introduce to you some people that I think are worthy of that. I'm not going to talk about Theodore Roosevelt, but I can't talk about Theodore Roosevelt I can't talk about Theodore Roosevelt Jr. without talking about Theodore Roosevelt. So I'm going to start here because most people say, what should we, look forward to after a nice meal in a large room? A history lesson. I find that that's very helpful in keeping people captivated and inspired. So we're going to start in 1898, which was a good year for many people. In 1898, this is a picture of Theodore Roosevelt on his horse. He has just stepped down as the Assistant Secretary of the Navy because he believes that there should be a war in Cuba against the Spanish people. There's been an explosion on a ship, the USS Maine, and there should be something done about it. So Theodore Roosevelt volunteers, and through that volunteering, he creates what will become known as the Rough Riders. The Rough Riders, this group of people, it's a cropped shot. It's actually a much larger picture, but this focused picture of him there in the middle is what he would receive the Medal of Honor for later. His group was pinned down. They did not have a lot of options. And so Theodore Roosevelt, in Theodore Roosevelt style, mounted his horse and went up the hill and took the hill with some other people, but he was the one that was leading the charge. Now this caused him to rise in national prominence immediately. And so from there, he came here. This is Main Street. Oklahoma City, July 3rd, 1900. So, this is Theodore Roosevelt going down the street because Oklahoma City was a great intersection of America and because of the number of Rough Riders that were from here. He would stop and speak at a number of places. He loved coming to Oklahoma and actually came here on a number of occasions. And many of the places that we have in our state are named after him or people in his administration. But he was a heroic figure. This is when he is vice president. His life is about to change and he doesn't know it. McKinley is shot, Theodore Roosevelt becomes president, and the world is forever changed. This was the pen that was given out at the time. These are very hard to find. If you have one, I will buy it for $5. It is worth $1,000, but it's a good opportunity to learn character. And so you'll see some of these. They're hard to find. But there it is. Oklahoma City, in a state yet to be born. 10,000 people lined up. Think about that. How many people actually lived here? And they wanted to see a man that they considered heroic. Well, he went into the White House. This is his family. His first wife died just after childbirth. His mother and his wife died on the same day on different levels of their home, which is what sent him west, trying to recover. And he found an America that he had not expected. Changed him. This is his family with his second wife. And this guy right here is the guy that I want to talk about. This guy, Ted Roosevelt. If it had not been for his father, you would know about this man, and I'm sure that some of you do, but I want to tell you a little bit more about this guy. Ted Roosevelt. You'll see his brother here to the side, Quentin. Quentin was killed in World War I, buried in France, volunteered. Ted would also go to World War I, where he was shot through the knee, went to the hospital, they cleaned it up, and he went back to the front line. It's kind of what you do when you're the son of Theodore Roosevelt, who I'll remind you got shot in the chest and continued with his speech for nearly an hour and 40 minutes before he went to the hospital. That's where he said, it's going to take more than a bullet to take down this bull moose. What was it like to grow up in a home like this? How would it shape your character? High expectations. A belief that you were born to do something, opportunity to do so. So Ted goes through World War I. He is a war hero. He comes back and creates the American Legion. Does not put his name on it very strongly because he did not want it to be political. World War II comes along. He did not want World War II for us to be involved, and then became inevitable. Ted Roosevelt. He was 5'7", maybe. 130 pounds, maybe. And I want you to know about this man. He volunteered to be in World War II. He went as a general. He was 56 years old. He limped, he had a cane, he had a heart condition, and he signed up because he saw an opportunity to serve. When he went to the war, he realized what was going to happen with D-Day, and he wanted to be a part of that. He asked twice verbally if he could be in the first wave on Normandy on D-Day, and they said no. He then asked a third time in written form, and he said these words. In the letter that he sent asking to be a part of this, he said, the force and skill, let me get to this. The force and skill with which the first elements hit the beach and proceed may determine the ultimate success of the operation. With troops engaged for the first time, the behavior pattern of all is apparent to set for this first engagement, considered that accurate information of the existing situation should be available for each succeeding element as it lands. You should have, when you get to shore, an overall picture in which you can place confidence. I believe I can contribute materially on all of the above by going in with the assault companies. Furthermore, I personally know both officers and men of these advanced units and believe that it will steady them to know that I am with them. And the request was granted. There was only one general that would be taking the beach on that day. And his name was Ted Roosevelt. And he was assigned to Utah Beach. This is that group. Just a few miles down from where he is was Omaha, where his son Quentin, named after his brother lost in World War I, would also be landing. It is the only father-son combination that would land on D-Day together, first wave. General Roosevelt, who could not stand on his own, so he took the beach with a cane in hand. No rifle, a pistol, because he couldn't hold the rifle and the cane. They landed. Utah, what they were coming under was direct fire, but nothing like what they would have at Omaha. But they hit the beach, and they realized that they are a mile off of where they're supposed to be. Ted Roosevelt, under direct fire, does reconnaissance. Walking along the beach with his cane under direct fire, he refused to duck because he thought it would make the soldiers who were on the beach with him have more confidence if they believed he was not afraid. There he is. A fellow soldier would stencil onto the Jeep, Rough Rider. He loved that Jeep. And just the presence of the Jeep would make people feel like they had a chance. What is it about a person like this? This is him with his son, who he did not know if he made it or not until a week after D-Day because they couldn't communicate. Why? Why do some people decide not to just endure hardship? They sign up to do the difficult things. What is it about them? So when I look at someone like Ted Roosevelt, he, just after this, and keep in mind, before the landing, he was having many heart attacks and would not tell the doctor that he was having it because he thought that they would not allow him to land on the beach. He died about a month later. They were on his way to give him his second star when he died of a heart attack, and he was buried beside his brother, Quentin. Later, would be moved to be with fellow soldiers there in Normandy. He and this family and the MacArthur family, the only father-son combinations, were both won the Medal of Honor. Why? What was it about this person? There's his son. Think about that. Wouldn't you think if you're the son of the president that you would use your influence to not do this versus using it to be able to do this? And then even if you were going to do it for yourself, wouldn't you hesitate to have your son be invading Normandy? And this was not a brand new soldier. His son had already received his first Purple Heart. Why? Why do some people use their influence in a way that inspires and others to hide? General Bradley, when he was asked later, what was the most heroic thing you saw in World War II? And he responded with this: Ted Roosevelt on Utah Beach. High praise. This is what he said. They were a mile off. They were a mile off from where they should have been. They don't know what to do. They've gotten into this little house. They're trying to determine what the next step is. And history records Ted Roosevelt said this, because they're all arguing, what do we do? Do we try to get back? He said this. He said, we will start the war from here. We're in the wrong spot. We will start the war from here. The landing craft didn't go where it was supposed to go. This isn't a good situation. We will start the war from here. I'll come back to this, but I love that he said that. In his letter to his wife, where he was telling her that he was going to be in the invasion force, he couldn't tell her some of the specifics. And so he said to her, I will be where you would expect me to be. There was no need for greater clarification. Can you imagine the pride in that family? Now, if I look at this person and I say, what is heroic? I'm looking at someone who is saying this: I am willing to look for the difficult thing, and I am willing to attack it, not just endure it. There is a tone right now, whether it be in our state, in our country, but definitely where we are today, where people are wondering what is going to happen. We have these challenges before us. And when we see the difficulty of the moment, we have the opportunity to act as if it's not happening and let it pass us by, to listen to the whisper in our ear that is saying the thing that we don't want to believe, which is maybe Oklahoma really didn't have a shot anyway. And I'm going to ask you to stop listening to that, because we are going to start the war from here if we need to. But the idea of our state not being able to move forward is an idea that we are unwilling to accept. Why? Because you got the kids sitting back here over there. We got these. If we're talking about why this matters, the inspiration is pretty clear. Somebody has to decide they are going to sign up to take the beach, not hope that somebody else will. It is the character of our people which has been the only thing that has allowed us to produce some of the world's great leaders. It is time for us to look deeply within ourselves and answer the question, who do we want to be? And I'm okay with the answer, because I think the answer that comes back is that we are the people who sign up. Let me give you a second one. So what is the power of a leader? The power of a leader is they set the expectation through their actions. Let me give you another person that inspires me. Shannon Warren. Look at what happens when a leader shows up and says, I am willing to take on the unknown. I love Shannon. I get more nervous about speaking at this thing than anything that I do. And let me tell you why. Because I know how much it means to Shannon. And when she asks you to do something, she is going to raise your game. I told someone once about Shannon, I said, that's someone you shouldn't bet against. Why? She's a warrior and she smiles. So I look at her And I could have chosen from 700 different pictures like this. And I noticed that because Shannon smiles in the face of uncertainty, other people smile too. It's what leaders do. They set the tone, they set the pace. And I look at Shannon and I think this is the kind of person that inspires other people to ask themselves different questions. Everywhere Shannon goes, she does two things. She picks a fight on behalf of peace. She creates conflict and she creates peace simultaneously because she will create conflict so that peace can reign. We have a hero among us. And you know that I'm telling you the truth. What is it about Shannon? She sees the needs and she'll fill the need. See the need, fill the need. See it, look for it. This is the difference. When they talk about the generation before and the generation now, they're saying now the problem is people look inside themselves for the hero versus looking outside themselves for the opportunity. In the generation today, why are they wanting more than knowledge? They want wisdom. Why do they want that? Because what's happening is they've been told all their lives, look for the hero inside you. And they looked inside and they're not seeing it. And they're saying, I can't find my purpose. If your purpose is filling need, then you will always have a purpose. But I have to look for the need, I have to see it, and then I have to fill the need with what I have, not what I wish I had. What I have, here we go. Look, then she smiles. What does she? She will smile and she will be courageous. By the way, she had no idea I was going to do this because I'm scared of her. Smile and be courageous. That's what she does. She smiles and says, well, that's great. Can you do better? Perfect. That's what leaders do. That's what leaders do. Look at this. She raises expectations. Do you know how hard it is to find people who love you enough to challenge you? Not for them, but for you. Every coach that you know, every teacher that you've been around, every leader that has allowed you to understand more about yourself and for you to be able to go farther, every one of those people raised the expectation and by so doing was willing to let you be uncomfortable. Here's the challenge of being a leader. When you are a leader and you're not uncomfortable, you're probably not leading. Discomfort and leadership go together. Why? Because discomfort, suffering, hardship is the fertile ground in which character is born. Hardships do not create character. Persevering through hardships do. It does create character. And when you are around people who know who they are, you have a much better chance of knowing who you are. Let's look at the last one. My friend Pete Winemiller. Pete has spoken to this group before. I love Pete. He passed away recently. He was the senior VP for guest relations at the Thunder. Pete was, without argument, the best in the world at what he does and did. Do you realize what it means to have ever met someone who is the best in the world at anything? And not only are they the best at the world at what they do, they are also someone who would like to be your friend. I love Pete. Pete was a leader. The reason that the Thunder the last 2 years in a row were the number one guest experience of all the NBA 2 years in a row, back to back. Why is that? It's because of Pete. Because Pete had the ability to unlock other people's potential. And you can't do that well if you don't love people deeply. First time I met Pete, I remember it. Most people remember when they met Pete. Pete was competitive. We would often speak at the same types of events, and he would speak after me sometimes, and somebody would say, you were the best speaker we've ever had here. And he said, better than Nathan Mellor? And they would say, yes. And then he would come to me and say, they told me I was better than you. And I thought he was kidding. He said, no, I'm better. Look at me. I'm better than you. He actually did that quite a bit. But I knew he was I thought he was better. I don't mean like competition. I mean like, you're Pete Winemiller. What are you talking about? We started talking about customer service and stuff. This was right after the Thunder got into town. And he's telling me about what they do, and he said, you got to come to one of the games and see what I do. So on behalf of research and academia, I said, oh, okay, I'll do that. But I'd watch Pete. He'd always say the same thing. We're gonna be world famous. We're fan-centric, customer-centric, fan-centric. We're gonna be the best. Which started by being willing to do the least. The least, pick up the trash. The least, greet someone. The least, shake someone's hand. I was talking about Pete to a group one time, and someone came up to me. This happens. It's funny how often people will do this. So if you want to do this about Pete, don't. But they'll come up and they want to set the record straight. Oh, you don't know that guy. Guy comes up and he says, you don't know Pete like I know Pete. And here we go. He said, when they moved into Leadership Square, or whatever they were at the first office, he said the doors, they would squeak. He said, I was in charge of maintenance. He said, Pete called us in there to put WD-40 on the hinges. And then he said he called us back 2 weeks later because they were squeaking again. He called us back again a month after that. He said that's the kind of guy he was. He was calling us all the time to get that stuff fixed. And you ever one of those moments where you're waiting for the actual punchline because what you thought, that they thought was a criticism was actually good? That's what you have against him. But I was driving to the game last week, and I was talking to my wife. We were talking about, will the culture stick? Has he been there long enough? Will people hear when the doors squeak? Because you have to listen for it. Will there be an appetite, a desire, a hunger that isn't just driven by greed or insecurity, but by the awareness that there could be more, so let's go get it? Pete's funny. You go to restaurants and he would talk to the people who were there. This was not even a place that he would go to other people's places and say, how was your experience? He literally would do this because he genuinely wanted people to feel something. Do you know the value of a person like that? I can't get this to advance, so if someone could help me back there. Maybe they can't get it to advance either. There are worse things than to see Pete's face. This is what he would say. People don't remember days, they remember moments. And he would get so animated. First conversation we ever had, he said, do you realize that? He said, people remember, they don't remember days, they remember moments. He said, imagine this. He said, I'm going home tonight, and I get home, and my wife asks me, what kind of day did you have? And he said, well, I'm going to tell her about the moments. There's a difference between having lunch together and realizing you are among friends and family right now. Do you realize that you are surrounded by people right now who want you to succeed, who want you to make a difference? It changes the atmosphere. Second thing that he would say, we were at the arena and he was showing me. He said, "Now look down here." He said, "There around the court side." He said, "Probably 40-50% of the overall revenue comes from these seats that are right here." And he said, "Then you have all the way up to Loud City." And he said, "This is the thing. We can't treat everyone the same. We can treat everyone well. So if you want to pay the premium, we're going to bring the food to you. But if you're going to sit up in Loud City, when you get up and you go over to the concession area, we want to make sure you have a great experience there. We can't treat everyone the same, but we can treat everyone well." So what does all that mean? We'll go through a couple more things here. When he died, at the funeral they had here in town, Memorial, they announced that day, the NBA, the entire NBA announced on March 23rd that they would be creating the Pete Winemiller Guest Experience Innovation Award. The entire NBA paused and will pause every year because of a man who would pick up the trash and greet people, and you would never be with Pete when he walked past someone who worked at the Thunder when he didn't stop and say, "How are you?" What was it about him that made the Thunder have what they have now? It was his character. So I want to wrap up with these three, actually do this, I'm going to wrap up with the last three thoughts. Look at this. This was a phrase that was in the article about his life. This woman came to the arena, this was brand new when they just got here, and she was overwhelmed, it was so big. And she said this to him, she said, "When I got here, this was a big place. When I met you, it got a lot smaller." Do you realize what that means? Humility always connects. Arrogance always separates. People who are humble are aware of what they've come from, and they appreciate what they have, and they want to share it with you. These will be done. What do we do to have places known for their ethical behavior? Not just that they are ethical in the sense of, they surpass the minimum, but people who enjoy making life better for other people. A few things. Number one, establish expectations with your actions and reinforce with your words. Establish expectations with your actions and reinforce with your words. There is a toxic thought in leadership that the farther you go up, the less that you have to serve, and it's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. People are watching. They watch whether you greet the person in the morning who is there at the restaurant. They're watching how you handle different situations. They're watching. With Pete, I would be talking to Pete, walking down the concourse there at the arena, and he would stop in mid-sentence, pick up trash, pick up trash, pick up trash. And you can't not pick up the trash when you're walking around with the executive responsible for it and he's doing it. Establish the expectations. And I'm going to ask you to establish expectations that are beyond what is expected in the normal sense. I'm asking the question, what would you do if you weren't just trying to do the minimum? What would it look like if you were saying, I know the situation is not great. I know that we don't have all the resources that we wish we had, but we are going to start the turnaround here. My brother's an inner city school principal in Little Rock, Arkansas. There are all kinds of reasons for someone in education to say, you know what, maybe we don't have a lot to look forward to, and maybe I should just let the standards slide. This is not the time for that here. This is the time to be raising kids and saying to them the difference that you could make as a teacher, the impact that you could make as a coach. It is a noble calling. When I moved here from California, 10, 11 years ago now, I was flying in on the airplane and I was sitting next to a young couple, two people sitting there next to me, and they were from here. I was not from here. I didn't know anything about the place. And they said, why are you coming here? And I said, well, my wife and I are looking at bringing our family here. And they looked at each other in a glance. And they said, have you been here before? I said, I have not. Actually, I have, but it was during the 3-day thing in the winter, and we never left the building. They said, it's a good place. They looked at me and they said, it's not like California, but it's a good place. And I said, for the first time, I said, so what's the best thing about Oklahoma? And the response was, the people. I've now had that question answered the same way hundreds of times. Here's the deal. That response is actually the right one. But history would say to us that our state does not do well when we forget that its most valuable resource is its people. So what do people of character do? We show up in the places where the outcome is not yet clear. We are the people that get on the boat when other people are trying to get off the boat. Why? Character is the byproduct of persevering through difficult times. And because of that, the people who are going to help our state become who it is we want to be are the people who are familiar with difficult times. I chose this place. I don't have to live here for the work. There is a grit. I joke, there's a toughness. If you're not tough, Oklahoma will make you leave. And I'm not about to have the good that has been done in this place evaporate or fade away because we have a few years of hardships. That's not the place that I moved to. I think we're just looking for where do we start the fight. Seems like we ought to start it from right here. Second, be intentional about character development. I get to work with young people. It's a passion of mine. If you're discouraged about the future, go hang out with some young people. You'll be better off. There are some people out there, young people out there, who desperately want to make a difference. Now, there's some who don't, but don't hang out with them. Hang out with the other ones. If you are concerned about our future, I would say to you that there is reason to be hopeful. I asked a group of young people, emerging leaders, I said, what's the number one thing you need to succeed? They, without being prompted, said this: access to people with gray hair. Access to smart. We are longing for access to wise. Be intentional about it. Why? To be courageous means that someone has to tell the story. To say to you, there's an expectation. There's a higher standard. We can do this. And then finally, look at this last one. Tell the story. Make an impact. Tell the story. It's a thing that's hard to describe when you catch someone doing it right. What is this award thing about? You know, I think it's powerful. But at the heart of it, it's a storytelling opportunity so that when people walk into your company, to your organization, that there is a physical reminder of a story that should be told. Let me tell you who we are and why that matters so much. Now, I know we've had our fair share of difficult times, but I also know that one of the great things about being a part of a community is that we urge each other on to not give up. In our office, we talk about the value of the team is that not everybody wants to quit on the same day. It's Friday. The person sitting beside you says, I hate this place. I hate you. I hate oxygen. I hate your mother. I hate this place. And because you're on a team, the people on the team say, it's not that bad. Don't give up. And the person that kept you from quitting on Friday, you're trying to talk down off the ledge on Tuesday. Because they're saying the same thing. I hate you. I hate your mama. I hate apple pie and baseball. I hate all of it. Now, here's the thing. What do we do as a community? There's a difference between having lunch together and doing life together, and I'm not interested in lunch. People say all the time, can we get lunch? No, I don't want to go to lunch. Now, sell me some. I want to do life. I want to be someplace where people have each other's back. And that you know the default mode is that they want you to succeed. I'm thankful that you're here. I'm thankful for what you stand for. Our company does get to do business all across the country. And it was an odd thing the first time I ever flew home and felt like I was flying home. You ever have that moment? It's a big deal. But what makes this home is the attitudes, the heart, people like Shannon. And I just figure, if we're going to play this game, we might as well win. And we can win if we do it together. Our state has produced some of the greatest things, greatest people, greatest companies in the history of this nation, if not the world. I won't get into all that right now, I'm out of time. But I would say this, right now, if you just allow that feeling to melt away that you are in here by yourself, because you are not. We cannot address the challenges we are facing right now alone. We are in this together. We really are. Thank you, Shannon, for your leadership. Thank you to those who make this happen. Thank you to you for choosing to make this a priority. I don't know about you. I think we could start this war from right here. And if we're not going to, why do I even say that? From right here, right now. Starting by this choice. We're going to choose to speak well of each other. We're going to choose to tell stories that are uplifting about each other. When we talk to people about what it's like to live in Oklahoma, we are going to choose the stories that allow us to be highlighted, not the ones that allow us to be the butt of the joke. We are committed, and it starts right here. Thank you for being a part of this today. It's an honor to be a part of this program.